Hey everyone, it's Thomas here. So today I am going to talk about the Denafrips Ares II DAC. A lot of you have asked me to review this DAC because ever since I made the video on the Musical Paradise DAC that uses tubes, a lot of you wonder how does it compare, because some of you mentioned to me that you're waiting for my comparison to decide which one to buy. So I will touch on that today, and I was very curious, just like all of you, because the Ares II DAC got a lot of positive review. So before I picked it up, I'm like, what can it do so well that you have so many people loving it? And today I'll try to offer my explanation as to why. So this DAC costs about 700 something US. It's my first R2R DAC. The DACs I had before are Delta Sigma, and if you don't know the difference, go read up on it. And also, in the interest of time, I'm not going to review it, meaning that I'm not going to talk about all the details regarding it. You can just go check out the other reviews. Instead, I'll just focus on, why you should consider this DAC. Because at the end of the day, if you look at all the DACs on the market right now, all of them are pretty decent, right? The bar has been set really high these days, meaning that even the budget DACs are quite impressive. So to stand out among the DACs, you have to do something that is a bit different. So the first thing that surprised me is the soundstage. Now, why is this important? And why this can be shocking to some people? You see, I play with tubes all the time, so creating that holographic soundstage is normal for me. And I've played with maybe, I don't know, 30 preamps, 40 amps. And over the years, what I've noticed is that given a certain price, it's easier to create a holographic soundstage with the help of tubes. So if I take a preamp that costs about $1,000 that uses tubes, and a preamp that's $1,000 that is solid state, in general, the one with tubes will create that bigger holographic soundstage. Of course, solid state has its strength. For example, darker backgrounds, less noise, faster bass, tighter bass, and so forth. Now, everything is relative, right? What is a big holographic soundstage is different from person to person. So for me, I have a certain standard that I go like, okay, it has to reach this level for it to be considered having a holographic soundstage. So with the Denafrips, that's where it shocked me, because it can create that big soundstage. And I'm like, the Musical Paradise with tubes can do it. Okay, it can help expand the soundstage. This Denafrips, even compared to my own DAC, which is Exosound E28, that's a DAC that's about, I think, 4K MRSP, 3 or 4K around there. Now, comparing to a 700 MRSP DAC, the Denafrips creates a bigger soundstage. So that's why, for me, if you don't have tubes in your system, okay, it's going to be a big shock to you. You're going to go, whoa, what just happened here? Now, I've brought this DAC to other places, to my friend's place to test it out. And what I noticed is that it depends on your system. If your system already creates a very big soundstage, for example, when I brought it to Dennis' place to try, he had these Martin Logan speakers. Now, they create an insanely big soundstage. And his DAC already uses tubes. When we put the Ares II in, it did not expand the soundstage anymore. So a bit of common sense is needed, right? If your system already creates this big soundstage, then maybe the Ares II will not help expand it further. So it depends on your system. But overall, in the different system I tried, it does help expand the soundstage. So that's the first thing. So the second thing that caught my attention is actually the mid-range. It is not silky smooth. Now, recently I've been making videos talking about gear that are not smooth in the mid-range, and yet there's a lot of texture to it. And with the Ares II, it falls in that category. So when I paired it with the Zoo, with the Triangle speakers, I feel like there's more, once again, the word texture in the mid-range. My own gear that I use daily is not like that. For example, I have Macintosh, Moon, I have Modrite, my Exosound E28, they're silky smooth. If you have a chance to A/B test gear, it's interesting. That's where you realize, oh, relatively speaking, it is not silky smooth, but you can see by not being silky smooth, but yet smooth, there's a bit of texture. And that's, for example, one of the big difference between the Focal Sopra and the Focal Canta in the mid-range. And I'll cover that in the future. So when I use the Ares II with, let's say, the Triangle speaker, the Br08, the Br03, it was a different experience compared to my own reference DAC, and in the good way. So I think the mid-range will also catch your attention. So that's the second thing. Now the bass, compared to my own reference DAC, I noticed that you lose a bit of the bass. It's not as punchy, but what you're going to get is speed, and it's going to be tighter. Now it depends on your system if it's a good thing or not. In my system, it depended on the speaker that I was using. For example, I was using the Focal Sopra 2. Focal Sopra 2 has crazy amount of bass. So much so that when I listen to it, when I really want to listen to it, I have to open my doors. I need the energy to escape. And when I use it with my own reference DAC, it actually was not a good match. So in that specific scenario, I actually prefer to use the Denafrips. So for those of you who wish that your bass was a bit tighter, the Ares II might actually help. And one more thing that's worth mentioning, it's transparent. There's a lot of detail on the top end, and it can be a little bit bright. Yeah, I guess that's the way to put it. I have to be careful here because sometimes being transparent and being bright is not necessarily the same thing. And that's one thing that we talked about when I brought it over to Dennis' place. Because when he put it in his system, he noticed that the top end is tilted up. And I would say compared to my own reference DAC, the top end is a little bit tilted up. However, it works well with certain speakers that I have. For example, what I have here, the 3050i from Q Acoustic. This is a very smooth sounding speaker. So it sounds better to me when I use the Ares II with it than, let's say, compared to a DAC that is less tilted up on the top end. So that's why there are times where I prefer the Ares over my own DAC. Now, I'm not saying the Ares II is as good as my own DAC. Overall, my own DAC is better, and maybe one day I'll do a video talking about it. But there are many speakers that I have that I would prefer the Ares II over my own DAC because of the equipment matching, right? I mentioned Sopra 2, I mentioned Q Acoustic. I personally prefer the Ares II with my Pioneer S3EX because it's a dark speaker over my own Exosound. Now Frederick, however, he prefers the Exosound over the Ares II, so there's also a question of taste. But overall, whenever I come across a dark speaker, a darker speaker, I use the Ares II as opposed to my own reference DAC. Not that my own reference DAC is not good with it, it's just that sometimes I want to add a bit of spice on the top end, a bit of sharpness on the top end. That's where I use the Ares II. So what are the areas of opportunity? I think you can buy direct from the website. It's the guarantee, right? The warranty. You don't have, let's say, a local store. If something goes wrong, you can bring it back to fix. So before you buy, just make sure you double check with them. How does the warranty work? There's no remote with this DAC. It's a DAC. There's no volume control, so you can't use it as a preamp. It does have an NOS mode and an OS mode. I didn't really test it because to engage NOS or to switch between NOS and OS, you have to press like 2 buttons, and then I wasn't sure is it on or off. So I'm like, okay, it's fine. I won't test it. All right, so next let's compare the Ares II to the Musical Paradise. Now the Musical Paradise is more analog sounding. The top end is more round. Bass is a bit punchier. There's more boom to the bass. Soundstage is about the same compared to Ares II. And the Musical Paradise mid-range, now remember I said Ares II is there's a bit more texture to it. And the Musical Paradise is actually smoother. Where the Ares II does better is bass is tighter, it's faster, it's more transparent, more detail. So instrument separation is clearer. So then that's why it depends on what you like. Alright guys, so let's wrap up the video. I'm going to give you something to think about for those of you who are considering buying a DAC at this point. Because I'm sure one of the questions you have is, am I getting the best DAC possible at $700-ish? And the answer to that is there's no such thing as the best DAC for $700. There's the right DAC for you, but not the best DAC. It doesn't exist because it depends on taste. And I'm sure some of you will go like, why don't I just buy the other DAC that measures really well? how can I be sure that the Ares II is a better DAC than the other one, short of A/B testing it? Now, I've not listened to other DACs that are in this price range, at least not the more modern ones. But I'm going to assume that they're very good because, like the Blue Sound Note 2i that I listen to, the i5 DACs that I own, you know, I'm like, yeah, they're actually very good. The DACs today are excellent. So how can you be sure that this Ares II is a good investment? I think the way to look at it is like this, okay? Different technology excels at different things. For example, horn speakers are very dynamic. So if you A/B test a horn speaker to a soft dome tweeter, the horn speaker at the same price point usually has the advantage. I'm just saying overall, right? I'm generalizing here. So it's like comparing Class A to Class AB to Class D amps. Each one of it has its own strength. At $300, for example, if you take a Class AB amp compared to a Class D amp, when it comes to bass control, tightness, Class D usually have the advantage. I'm not saying it's always like that, but usually that's how it is because that's the strength of that technology. So Ares II being an R2R DAC would do certain things better than a Delta Sigma at the same price point. So that's why when you ask, why don't I just buy the other DAC that measures well, for example? Well, I'm like, okay, is it the same technology or is it a different technology? Like, what is the most important thing for you? If soundstage is the most important thing for you, then yeah, I think R2R DAC might be the way to go. Now, I don't know because I've never tried other R2R DAC. I don't know how it affects the soundstage, but with the Ares II, I found it, yeah, really good. At the end of the day, if you do get yourself an Ares II, you know you're getting a solid performing DAC at $700. As I mentioned, the fact that a lot of people endorse it shows that. So can this be your endgame DAC? Now, when we talk about endgame DAC, game changer, DAC of the year, for example, a bit of common sense is needed. If you have a limited budget, then no, this is not your endgame DAC. Go get your $100,000 DAC. But if you decided that $700 is the most you spend on a DAC, then yeah, this can be one of your endgame DAC. I think DAC has reached a point where even though if we improve a bit more, it's not going to be a quantum leap. It'll be just small improvement. All right, guys. So with that, I'll see you next time.
Like two fires, movement so graceful. Wildcat in the jungle with dangerous claws. Movement she anticipates, a sight set on her prey. Like stars in the darkest night, crystallize, fascinate. If you wanna stay alive, if you don't wanna be her prey, don't stand in her way. Run, run, run away. Crystallize, 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 watching her prey. Crystallize, 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 fascinate. Eyes glow like two fires, movement so graceful. Wildcat in the jungle with dangerous claws. Movement she anticipates, a sight set on her prey. Like stars in the darkest night, crystallize, fascinate. If you wanna stay alive, if you don't wanna be her prey, don't stand in her way. Run, run, run away. Crystallize, 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 watching her prey. Crystallize, 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 fascinate. Yeah.